Welcome to the Wizards of Amazon podcast, where we cover all things private label. My name is Carlos Alvarez, and I will be your host for the show. Today, we have guest Rick Watson on the show. Rick, what's up?
I think the world is upside down. That's what's up.
It does seem like that. Today is, what's today's date? It is Friday, March 20th. So we're in the heart of Corona in the U.S. and you are in New York. What's going on?
Yeah, we're in ground zero. I think we're all sheltering in place, although the governor really hates that term. He does not want us to call it sheltering in place because we're not in physical bunkers.
Sure. Rick, you are an e-commerce strategist. And as we were talking about before we hit the magical record button, initially I thought that was like the vaguest title in the world. But after digging a little bit into your profile and your background and all the different media appearances, actually like legit media appearances, that's an amazing title. I think like you are like God's gift to strategy after reading some of the stuff you
Yeah, I'm not sure. One of the things I hate, I actually hate the term expert. Like, to me, anyone who calls themselves an expert about anything is usually not, as you probably have experience with as well. So the thing I love, I like working in all parts of e-commerce, from technology to advertising to inventory. But to me, a lot of it comes back to strategy, because if you're doing the wrong things, it doesn't matter that you're doing things, because you're not going to be effective.
What you're not an Amazon seller yourself. You haven't created a brand, no direct Amazon sales experience from you being the brand owner. However, in a second, I want to unpack these 5 amazing points on a LinkedIn post actually that you created, which is surrounding what should Amazon do to help its marketplace sellers. Some of this, I guess, is triggered by the restriction of non-essential items being shipped into FBA and everything else. But before we dive into that, were you born a strategist? Like, how
Yeah, I mean, my father was an entrepreneur, so I grew up sort of the son of a CEO. So that was kind of like perspective. That's one. I have a fairly strange background in that my background is electrical engineering and computer science, so very technology heavy, but I was also on the debate team, so I enjoyed speaking and talking with people. So that kind of explains some about me. In terms of strategy, a lot of it has to do with being one of the first people at the company Channel, which a lot of Amazon sellers will know over the years. I was one of the first 5 employees there starting in 1999, and I was there for over 10 years. So I built literally software initially, because that's what I came out of school doing. And then I moved to product management and running the product and engineering organization 10 years later, when it was 300 person company before it went public. This was sort of back in the heyday of ChannelAdvisor. So that's seeing the growth of seeing eBay before it had an API program, seeing Amazon before it had a marketplace and was in multiple categories, before.
So when dinosaurs were still
when dinosaurs roamed the earth, Amazon had an auction site that most people don't know. That's true. And they had a Z-Shop site, which was kind of like a mini Shopify.
You kind of dated
on Amazon.
yourself there.
I'm so old. I'm older.
There's a video here and you look significantly I know that can't be true now.
Yes. I'm like Dick Clark.
Yeah. That's accurate. So what's your main focus now? Like, what do you work on now? What
I've been doing now is, so about a year ago, I started my own e-commerce consulting firm, and I work with 2 types of companies. One is investors and management teams that are starting entirely new direct-to-consumer e-commerce initiatives. So usually this has to do with someone who's bought a brand or is at a big retailer or brand, and they're doing a lot of wholesale business, but they can't do some basic direct-to-consumer things. Like, they may not have a website, or they have a very old one, or they can't ship eaches at all. And so as a result, everything that stems from that, the customer service experience and the logistics and the marketing, they just don't have a mindset for direct to consumer. And they know that the typical experience is that if you're in the wholesale business, you don't know anything about your customers, your margin is eroding because a lot of your brand customers are going direct. Amazon's taking your margin, and lots of other companies. And so you need to change your business to go direct to consumer, you just don't know how. And you can't call an agency because an agency they want people who already know what they're doing. And so basically I help them get from, I have some money and I have an idea, get me to the point where I can start servicing customers in a direct manner.
In a profitable direct manner.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so from programming to e-commerce strategy, do you feel like anything on the programming side helped you do that, or did you pick up a lot of stuff at Channel Advisor?
Yeah, I picked up a lot at Channel Advisor. I mean, Scott Wingo is one of the pioneers in e-commerce, and so I learned a ton from him over many years. He's even when he was at Channel Advisor, he was a multiple generation successful entrepreneur. And so just watching those guys and being around the same group of 10 to 15 core people for so many years. And I just always loved talking to sellers. And so from the beginning, Channel Advisor, basically Scott Wingo had the idea that big sellers are going to sell on eBay. And he had this idea in '99, and that wasn't a thing. Like IBM was our first customer. We had so many eBay sellers, probably only with I don't know, I can count a handful of them I still know and that are good friends of mine that are still on there. So many are not there anymore. As you know, marketplace is a really tough business. So after you've talked with so many sellers, you just start to get in their head and start to understand how they think, and touring warehouses and seeing the listing process and dealing with customer service and fraud and fakes and all those things. And so kind of going from Channel Advisor, the first thing that really sort of got me in the retailer mindset was when I was at barnesandnoble.com. I actually built their third-party marketplace, rest in peace now, but it was a thing for a time. This was in 2011.
It was a big thing.
It was in 2011. We actually got Wayfair as a seller. So we probably added about 1.5 million SKUs to the catalog. But starting a marketplace from zero not on my own, but with a team of at most probably 100 people at the time that were working on that platform was a huge sort of formative experience in learning what does it take to operate a marketplace, which is a completely different perspective than building software for marketplaces.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's jump into the meat and potatoes here on this post. I pride myself. I've been a full-time Amazon seller of a little over 14 years. Been really successful with it. It's the only thing I think that I'm really good at.
That's great.
And my wife would confirm. The other thing is, for about 9 years, I've had an agency that focused primarily on helping Amazon, the A to Z on Amazon, the whole gamut there. Primarily for brands and private label sellers. Now, I pride myself on thinking outside of the box, thinking several steps ahead. And this is the first time in 14 years that I just didn't see one thing, but I saw 5. And I wasn't thinking this. And obviously, this is you put this out there. None of this stuff has happened yet. So you could be wrong. So I
make up a lot of things. That's what I say.
No, but I love it. I love it. I love it. So I really think that some or all of this is going to be 100% accurate in the very near future. So I'm going to go over each one. I'm looking at it. I'm looking at the post.
Perfect.
And I want to go over each one, not necessarily in any order, but this first one. What do you think?
Yeah. So by the way, why did I write this? I had at least 2 or 3 people in the last week ask me the same question. And the question was pretty simple. A lot of sellers are hurt. Amazon has, and Jeff Bezos is very public about saying that the third-party business is critical to our business. It is maybe the most important part of the retail part of Amazon. Amazon has many companies now. But it's probably more important than a lot of the other parts of retail of Amazon. And so should Amazon be doing something to help its sellers? And what will they be doing? Could you tell us, tell me, what do you think is going to happen there?
Okay, and then your response was these 5 points. The first one, and we don't ever get into politics here, but it's really possible to talk about Corona and importing fees and Amazon without mentioning a little bit. So
That's right.
most people know of I guess the feud between Jeff and the Donald, and you're proposing here that Amazon should prepare as if it's a public utility that could be commandeered by the federal government at any time. Yes, Jeff and Donald will bury the hatchet. Can you unpack that? Where are you coming from with that?
Yeah, so it's really just putting myself in a kind of a World War II mindset, where at one point,
it's a pandemic, so
yeah, it's a pandemic, and at one point, look, the America is an amazing country, and if you look at kind of going back in the 40s, I mean, we were putting one, bomber off the line, and the bomber has like, I don't know, 1 million parts or something every hour, or something like that's kind of like our manufacturing output capacity. So the idea that the people can't buy toilet paper is kind of nonsensical to me, right? And so in America, so I think the federal government will act at some point to unblock all aspects of the supply chain is number one. And I think second is I think it will affect all the carriers. Probably at some point, all carriers will be ordered or almost forced, either from the external or within, to stop sending non-essential orders. So that's sort of another part of it. And I think the other thread that I really thought is like Amazon is always much smarter than everyone else. And so I'm like, what would I do if I were Amazon and I was in this case? Like, Amazon is very early in their supply chain journey from a transportation by Amazon point of view. Mm-hmm. By that, I mean like being an official public carrier, first-class carrier like UPS or FedEx.
Absolutely.
And they're only carrying Amazon parcels. And we know that's not where they're going to stop. And you have this crisis, which, your crisis is his opportunity and your margin is his opportunity. So I kind of believe that if I'm Amazon, one way you could potentially use this crisis as an opportunity to accelerate your plans to move beyond the Amazon seller only, Amazon parcel only market, either FBA or Amazon first party, and start basically make the federal government your first customer. Offer them some kind of discounted rates, and number one, it fuels their network. Number two, it gives them experience. And number three, it kind of like throws a dart at FedEx at the same time. So
well, actually, I mean, it's killing off your enemy by making him your friend.
Right.
Okay, and wow.
So that's like, what is the judo move for Jeff Bezos right now in this situation? And that's the best one I could come up with.
By actually, instead of waiting for it to potentially be forced upon them and other carriers, it's to come out and volunteer themselves up as kind of taking the initiative, where the government would kind of need a model or a blueprint to enforce everywhere else.
And you know what? I think if Amazon is really, really smart about it, they will do it like Elon Musk style. Like when Elon Musk talked about like, hey, we're going to make this Hyperloop. Like the whole world went like, what the hell are you talking about? People were going to teleport from San Francisco to Los Angeles. Like, this doesn't make any sense. But then he published plans, and people believe Elon Musk, like he could do it. Like whatever it is, I still don't know what a Hyperloop is, to be honest with you. Yeah. But if I am Jeff Bezos, the way you take advantage of the situation is you start public statements about the fact that we're willing to step in and help the federal government. Here are our rates. Here's what we're going to do. Here are the routes we're going to do. And almost force the government on their back foot to saying like, to start a national conversation about like, hey, why don't we take Amazon up on this offer? We can't get ventilators. Like we can't get all these things to where they need to be. And Amazon is willing to help us. Yes, we know that there's probably another agenda here, but
When I read it too, I'm also, when I walk around and I'm around people, I just default to everybody is a
By the
prime.
way, social distancing.
Yes.
Don't walk around too much.
Yeah, no, in normal times when I walk around somebody, I just default to everybody I know and I see is a prime member.
Right.
They have a prime membership. I just default to that. And now the very few people that I'm around in this social distancing, I hear people say, I just got my prime membership. That way I can get toilet paper. Right.
Right.
But they see, people are converting to being prime members now that weren't before because of this narrative, like you're saying, that they believe that's the only way they can get their toilet paper.
Right.
Which I think translates better for all sellers in the future, the more prime members there are. So.
Yeah, I agree with that. 100%.
I thought that was brilliant. I agree 100%. The second one, with the slashing of FBA, they may relax prime restrictions and ungate the seller fulfilled prime program that's their prime assortment, so that their prime assortment doesn't dwindle in non-essential categories. Can you unpack that?
Yeah, this came out of, I was quoted in an article last week from Business Insider, Eugene Kim there.
Yeah, just a small just a small play.
Yeah, who just reached out to me a couple of times. And what he actually tipped me off that this was all happening with FBA being forced to be non-essential items or essential items. And thinking through, what does that mean for Amazon? And particularly the consumer. I mean, the reality is the consumer, I think, immediately isn't going to notice any change.
Right.
I mean, other than the fact that it's Corona. But the fact that it's FBA, they're not going to immediately notice any change, because the reason is, I think a couple of things happen. Number one is the demand on non-essential items is starting to trail off and probably will continue to trail off. I think second is the smarter sellers started sending more products to Amazon. I have a couple of seller friends who are like, whoa, if the stuff really hits the fan, then if my employees may not be able to ship on time and I don't want to lose my prime status, let me ship extra stuff to Amazon. And so third is the demand for essentials went way up. And so Amazon, I think, to me, how I think Amazon did this is they looked at those three things together and they're like, this can't continue. We're in trouble. So we're going to focus on essentials. And so I think what it means for them, if they want to preserve after the products in FBA now sell out, Prime is the linchpin for all the retail elements of Amazon, in my opinion. I mean, Prime is Amazon from the consumer point of view, period, like end of discussion. And so if the value of Prime dwindles, that's a really negative thing for Amazon. And so how if I'm Amazon, like, what other options do you have? SFP obviously is a good option, and there's warehouse by Amazon, like if you put their software in your warehouse, or something like, or if they authorize 3PLs to be SFP on your behalf, right? Which I think several do. So it was really more about like maintaining selection and thinking what Amazon could do during this time to, I guess, help out sellers in some way, so that they could continue being in Prime and not negatively hurt them. Because some people are both. Many people are SFP and FBA. Right.
Well, many people struggle. I mean, Prime, seller point of view, Prime, as you know, allows you to scale, allows a lot of people to enter into e-commerce without having ever touched boxing tape.
Right.
So, so when I recently was interviewed on the Helium 10 Facebook group, and that was my default. I mean, I came from that, like before when they were pitching FBA, and I'm like, I'm not going to pay you to send inbound, you know what I mean? And go figure. But I defaulted. I was like, okay, yeah, this makes sense. Like, we're going merchant fulfilled. We're set up for that. But for a lot of people that have never done that, again, I've never touched box tape seller, that's unheard of, to do that. But the few people that are in the middle, their biggest hesitation is that the metrics surrounding it are so tough.
Right.
You're off by a day in shipping, or you ship late, you're just done. Amazon, zero tolerance. Well, what do you see? How do you see Amazon dealing with that portion of it?
Ooh, look, I do think it will be relaxed. I love two minds. Like, number one is,
Or forgivable.
yeah, exactly. The prime promise, 2 days, I think as long as the supply chains are running, I really don't think they will relax it. That's just my personal point of view. I think they will find other ways to be more forgiving. And I think the only way that will happen is if they relax, say like, okay, 3 days is now prime, or 4 days, 4 days is now prime. It just sounds funny to say it anymore. Like, people used to ship in 3 to 5 days.
Remember, delivered in 6 to 8 weeks.
Right. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Do you see, is there even a way to set it up that Amazon can share their deep discounted shipping rates with these merchant fulfilled sellers pass through UPS?
It's a good question. Normally, like, if you're a drop shipper, right, a lot of times you're using the retailer's rates,
right?
Because they're cheaper than your own. And so they've never done that on the marketplace side, or most people never do that on a marketplace side. So it's an interesting thought.
Because they're set up on the vendor side, they have that vendor direct ship.
Right. Right. Could it be possible? Would they want to do? Is that, I guess, another question. Absolutely. But I'm sure they have the best rates on the planet for UPS. But it's a good question. I personally don't think Amazon will relax Prime standards, but we're in such a strange time that I probably won't be surprised either if they do it.
Okay, let's go on to number 3. Well, 3rd and 4th, I think we could probably cover at the same time. If I'm understanding them correctly, that is 3rd. I expect them being Amazon. I expect Amazon to eliminate monthly seller minimums on the entry-level seller accounts. This is a no-brainer. And 4th, I do think Amazon will slash its marketplace success fee by 1/3 to ease the burden on sellers. 1/3, that sounds pretty specific.
I don't know. Yeah, I thought I would just pick a number. And yeah, for the first one, it's just more about helping the little guys, like the smallest sellers. I thought that would have, who have the most numbers of sellers,
Yeah, what do you mean by seller minimums?
Seller minimums, what I mean is, if you just sign up as a non-pro seller on Amazon, on the marketplace, you pay $29 a month or $39 a month.
Yeah, the pro one is
there's a monthly fee in addition to thing. But if you pay, if you don't do that, then that's kind of what I mean. Just waiving those minimum fees, and I may even misread the rate card. So
yeah, and the thing where you don't think Amazon will slash its market, well, you do think Amazon will slash its marketplace success fees. Does that mean the fees that Amazon takes away?
Yeah, the 15% or whatever it is based on the category.
Why would they do that?
I think because it will make them seem human. is the short answer. So I think, ultimately Amazon, like, marketplace is a profitable part of their retail business, and they can probably afford a few points of margin here.
I can see where that would go a long way, especially since a lot of newer sellers right now feel almost betrayed that are selling non-essentials, and they can't see past the pallet in their garage, so to speak.
Right.
And before, I never saw a move like this coming until it happened.
Right.
But when it happened, I thought it was genius, and I was like, "That's obvious." But at no point have I ever considered, like, if you're not suspended and you're in good standings, you can always ship to FBA if you have an account. Like, that was never in question. Whatever you have.
Right. Yeah.
And now there is.
Yeah, as long as I'm willing to pay the rates.
As long as.
Right.
So I think that market, shaving some of that marketplace success fee definitely would earn some of that trust back from third-party merchants.
Yeah, I think so. I think it would ease their burden a little bit. I mean, some people asked me if I thought they were gonna extend capital terms to sellers, for like inventory financing. I don't think Amazon has a program like that. I could be wrong. They have a program.
Well, Amazon does have a lending program. That would be a whole other topic too. That
yeah, exactly.
some sellers right now are like, look, I owe you, and they automatically pay themselves back from the disbursements. So some sellers now are kind of like, look, you're not letting me ship in for 2 weeks,
right?
and yet you still want me to pay. So I don't know if it's going to gain any ground. I think there's some merit there.
Yeah, so Amazon could potentially expand its lending program. At first I thought like, oh, maybe Amazon isn't going to do anything. They'll just wait to see what the federal government does, and then, but that would make a very interesting post. So,
right. This fifth and final one. Before getting into the fifth one, why do you think Amazon picked 2 weeks? Like, how do you think that why 2 weeks? Do you think the 2 weeks will be extended?
The 2 weeks for the not allowing new
non-essentials.
Yeah, I think no one knows what's going on. Right?
That's the only honest answer.
Yeah, really, no one has a clue.
Yeah. I'm thinking I'm preparing.
Yeah. I think it's going to be long. I think it's going to be longer.
You think what?
I think it's going to be longer. They've even paused pantry right now, for this, the big bulky shipments. My guess is they don't have enough stock anyway. Yeah. So
I see it extended, and that's why that first one that you mentioned, what is it? The second one about the seller fulfilled Prime program. Yeah. I think that's when that kicks in.
Yeah, I think so too. They need to figure out a way to keep their supply going for these items. And I think it's okay if selection is slightly down, because buying is slightly down. But if it drops off a cliff, then that's a problem for them.
Yeah, and for a lot of things that someone like one of those suction cup, hold your cell phone in the car things, like if a certain brand runs out of stock, there's like 50 more.
Yeah, and that it kind of goes with my theory about Amazon Marketplace. Yeah, you are replaceable. I mean, that's like the motto of Amazon Marketplace. So if there's one less seller, Amazon is like, there'll be another one behind.
Let's get into this fifth one. This is interesting. Fifth, I think Amazon's supply chain network will start being a vendor of the federal government. Watch this space. There's a deal coming here with his old enemy that the president will be able to take credit for. I think there's a lot of truth to that.
Yeah. Well, first of all, look, I mean, politics aside, if the president can take credit for something, he will do many things that he said he would not do before.
Correct. Any president.
Any president, in particular this one.
Yes.
And so I think that's kind of the first point. The second point is, it seems like this whole Jedi I was surprised the Jedi contract is being reconsidered now. I'm not sure if somehow the Congress got it ahead of this or something, but Microsoft may not have this contract anymore, and Amazon may be back in the running. Like, where did that come from?
Right.
Also, Trump has admitted, I think publicly, that he has talked to Jeff Bezos in the last couple of weeks.
I heard that.
What are they talking about? I don't know. So what
do you see a deal looking like?
Wow, it's a good question. I think they could be set up as a shipper of record from, in between these manufacturers of critical goods and all the outlets that need them, whether that's hospitals or nursing homes or cities or wherever. Amazon will set up sort of dedicated routes, almost like a public utility, almost like, just think about it in like electrical grid terms. Like, they become the people wiring the electricity generators to the to the neighborhoods, or to the homes, and they just set themselves up outside of the warehouses, of the loading bays of all the warehouses and the manufacturers, as things roll off the assembly line right onto Amazon trucks, directly to wherever they need to go, so that New York doesn't run out of ventilators, or Miami doesn't run out of, medical masks, or, groceries hit the Kroger, or whatever it is.
Yeah, there was a post this morning I saw. I'm assuming it's accurate. It was on Facebook, but I'm assuming it's accurate. And that was at the CDC.
You said those things together, Facebook.
Well, I have to nowadays, right? You have to say that. Right. Otherwise, we record this, we send it out, and I get hit with fake news. So I'm putting it out there like it sounded legit when I read it.
Right.
And that was that the CDC has said, look, in the absence of masks and protective gear, like for this, that you should wear a bandana.
Yeah.
And it really emphasized the point, like that they're already sticking that out there to realize how critical the shortage would be for medical support for masks. Now, I'm wondering I don't know if this is what you're thinking, but the fifth one and the first one we covered about this deal.
Yeah, they're kind of together, yeah.
How does this look? Is it even a good thing? But how does this look if this was in place and this started happening? Like we can go back when we first start hearing this. Does a situation like this allow the government to say, look, everything you have in inventory on this stuff, they're able to buy it and they're able to get it and get a hold of it to their medical staff, rather than what happened now is everyone just used their Prime account, citizens just wiped it out.
Right.
And in most cases wiped it out to the point where they have a year's supply.
Right.
Kind of like toilet paper.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think that's the case. I think you're not in a situation where you need to go through procurement anymore. You know what I mean?
Right.
You don't need to go through, logging into Amazon and trying to find a delivery window for yourself. Like stuff's just going to start showing up to all the essential places. And Amazon, I think in theory, their delivery network could be a big part of that.
Yeah.
And I think the other companies, I'm not saying other companies couldn't be a part of it too, or even it could go sideways, that to stick it to Jeff Bezos, Trump would do the opposite, right? Like UPS is takes over the USPS during this crisis, and everyone else is locked out. I mean, that could happen.
Yeah, no, but definitely that's what we're talking about here. Like none of this has happened yet. But exactly. I think it's important to, hear this kind of stuff. And if you feel like, wow, I think there's some merit to that, make sure your business is ready for that scenario.
Not to diminish my own points, but the whole counterpoint to all my points is that of all these retail leaders that Donald Trump put on the stage about 2 weeks ago, I think this Friday.
None of them were Bezos.
None of them were Bezos.
Right.
The number one retailer in e-commerce in the U.S. So it was fascinating, I think.
Yeah, that was definitely it. I almost thought it was a snub. They had Walmart up there and a few others, but
100%.
But nowadays that could be the very fact that means it's going to be Bezos. So it's the short answer is be ready. What advice do you think, or what quick strategy nugget could you drop out there to e-commerce sellers right now that have been selling for the last 3 to 5 years, and they have had this gravy train of ease in starting their solopreneur like business in e-commerce, and now regardless if this is cured tomorrow with the economy, we're looking at a tough road now. What's some strategy advice you can give?
I'm always big on diversification, so I think diversify. There are a lot of Amazon sellers that if they started today, they could never repeat their business.
Sure.
Meaning that they've gotten a niche, that their items have history, they have reviews, they have they're the top of the keywords. If they went in today with the same product, same strategy, there's no way they could rise above the fold. It's just a fact on Amazon today how big it is. And so I think if the retail, even Andrew Cuomo, the governor of New York, used this like snow globe analogy for like the world. It's like when someone shakes up a snow globe and then it settles back down. Like, how would you make your business different? So I would say rethink, number one is rethink everything. And I think think in a direction of diversification. Like, what other channels did you never spend time on because you were so focused on Amazon? And that that was your gravy train, and you never, obviously everyone is cautious on Amazon because Amazon could white label your product and everything. I'll leave that to the side. But if you don't have your own brand, if you don't have your own store, if you aren't on more than one channel, if all these things, I think, go back to basics and developing your own customer base that you can market to yourself, that you have 100% control over. I think it's just good advice to revisit right now.
Yeah, definitely. And I'd like to say that I definitely know what I'm doing when it comes to launching products on Amazon and my own brands, but you have some truth to it. There are portions of the success that my brands have right now that if I needed to do the same thing again with the same factory, same product, same PPC, would not achieve the level that they are now. So things change and you change with them. Yeah. Rick, I want to wrap this up because we're getting towards the end of where I like to keep these relatively short. There was a lot to cover here. Two things I want to hit on is, or for you to share, is how do people get a hold of you? Yeah. And the other one is, if you are a reader, what is your favorite book and why?
Yeah, it's a good question. I always like, one of my first technical books that I ever read was like William Gibson's Neuromancer, like an old sci-fi novel. And so I read it like very early on in like kind of childhood, and just like thinking about like, what is this cyberspace thing? Like, what does that even mean?
Neuromancer.
Yeah, exactly. Neuromancer. So your sci-fi heads in the audience will appreciate the old
I'm a sci-fi geek.
Reference. William Gibson is one of the originals. And you know, in fact, a lot of the, you know, Blade Runner and like all this stuff was, you know, someone's gonna debunk me, but later on, but I think it's based on that. So that's kind of one. And then how people get in touch with me. So I have a website. You can hit me up there, rickwatson.io. I'm on LinkedIn a lot, and you can hit me on there. Search for Rick Watson e-commerce. I'll probably come up. And then my email is rick@rickwatson.io. So you can reach me there.
Perfect. Rick, you've been amazing. I had a blast. This has got to be one of the funnest guest interviews on my podcast that I've ever had to date. So I really appreciate that. And I hope you stay super safe during this Corona COVID-19 thing.
All right. Thanks so much, Carlos. I had a great time as well.
Thank you. Liked what you heard and want to stay connected? Join our Facebook group or find me anywhere on social media @Wizards of Amazon, or text the word Amazon to 69922.